I think the more sober I get and the more I do stay in that mindfulness practice, you can be patient with people and go, hey, look, I know this person's struggling. They're not being upfront with me, but I'm sure they'll come and speak to me when the time's right. And I think that's the message I want to get out to people. It's not too late to reconnect to things that you were passionate about, but you've got to be prepared to change your mindset around it. You don't have to share anything. You don't have to talk to anyone if you're not ready, but eventually you will when you start feeling better. Our job is just to be there. You say hello to someone, they don't say hello back, that's cool. Eventually they will talk.
Hello, beautiful questers, and a warm welcome to the OneQuest podcast. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us on this journey of learning and self-discovery.
Our guests are not just mentors in wellness and self-improvement, they are adventurers at heart, sharing their unique paths and life lessons.
If you enjoy our show, please subscribe and share. Your support enables us to feature more amazing guests and deliver impactful conversations. Please note that some episodes may cover sensitive topics like abuse, mental health struggles, and personal challenges.
Welcome to our Infinite Potential podcast. We today have Trent Knox on the guest seat, I guess. And we've got a little bit of an intro here, and I'll read that out and then we'll get started on our quiz, our Q&A for Trent, which is a great story. So Trent started his real estate career in 2002, but by 2016 burnt out. His burnout led him to a dark place. Seeking a way forward, he found strength in movement, running at Bronte Cutting, where the 440 was born. Now, 8 years later, I think you might have to make sure the facts are right here. 8 years later, Trent is dedicated to improving mental, physical, and spiritual health through community and connection. Working with global brands, he shares his journey and the 440's mission, using movement to foster real-world connection and positive change. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks. Is that ChatGPT?
That's what it spat out, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you like that one?
It's pretty accurate. How are you going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Trent.
So 8 years for the 440, is that correct?
Yeah, nine in June. So and officially 9 in the 18th of June 2016.
Yeah. And for our listeners who don't know what the 440 is, like the brief intro, you love your movement and stuff. Tell us a little bit about what the 440 is.
440 it's a run club, and I think we were one of the first, inclusive run clubs that was non-performance. And, there's been running's been around for a long time. Run clubs have been around, well before our time. And some of the clubs that are 50, 60, 70 years old. The 440 was just an inclusive community that comes together every Saturday morning at 5 a.m. And we're probably one of the only run clubs that still kicks off at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning. We do a loop run. It's up and down the old tramway lines down at Bronte, the old Bronte Cutting. We don't measure how many laps people do. Some do a lap, some people do 10 laps. Some walk, some run, some just come and hang out and come to connect. And we've been coming together, rain, hail or shine. So a little bit like church, or a bit like an AA meeting where it's they're on all the time and they're accessible. And I think I like to think we were like the kickstart to more run clubs and inclusive run clubs kicking off around the country and globally.
And just for the listeners, I think it's worth noting that Trent and I have known each other for many years. And in particular, I've been following the 440 for many years as well, and seeing the way that you talk about the 440. And so I'm definitely going to ask lots of questions. But when you say inclusive, I think what you've mentioned before is that because there's no measurement, it's not like there's one leader out in front leading this run for today's running session.
Yep.
Like even park run, it's a 5K loop of some sort, but there's always someone that's way out in front, and then there's a trail or a tail end. At the 440, it's because you've got this small loop. Everyone's just there. Everyone's involved, right?
Yeah, I think growing up, one of the things that my father instilled in me that I just remember, like he's a pretty hard man, you'd remember him, and he worked us pretty hard and often overstepped the line and pushy and what have you. But I witnessed him never leaving anyone behind. And, whenever we were training, if there was someone else that, parents weren't there, he'd give them a lift, he'd get them to jump in. And when we were training, if they wanted to train with us, it was enter your own risk for the other kids. But I just remember him being super inclusive, amongst all his faults. And that's something that stuck with me, that, you don't leave anyone behind. And I think growing up, I always had different friends coming in. Like when I got out of competitive sport, I always wanted to come and I guess lent in on me to come and train because I was always reliably training. And I never wanted to exclude anyone. It was just something that, I don't know how I ended up that way, where I never thought someone wasn't good enough to train with me. It was like always find a way to fit them in. And, I used to see a lot of people struggle to turn up because they felt like they didn't look the right way, wearing the wrong pair of shoes, and they couldn't keep up. And I think as I got older, and I was coming out of the real estate space and leaning in on the fitness space and working, I was just trying to figure my own life out. I always used to think, well, there's got to be a way that we can help everyone. There is a place for everyone in this space of community and movement. And, and then I just sort of fell into the 440. And the thing I loved about it, and I still love about it, is that when we do it in the dark on a Saturday morning, there's an opportunity for people that don't think they can run, or they don't look the part, or they run weirdly or move weirdly, or, and they're terrified of people, and they don't want to be seen in the daytime moving because they think that they just can't do it, that they could come and move under the cover of darkness and not be judged on how they do it or how many laps they do or whether. And the looping side of things meant there was no clear, like, as you said, park run, there's a start line, a finish line. So someone's got to win. Someone's got to come last. And that's a time thing. And they've got a great movement. We were more about, it doesn't matter who comes first, and we don't know who comes last because not everyone's covering the same distance. It doesn't matter if you do 1 lap or 10 laps. No one cares. Yeah. And more importantly, it doesn't matter if you did 10 laps last week because you felt amazing, and this week you feel like shit because it's just been a long week. But you got up, you dragged yourself out of bed. You
on a Saturday.
Yeah, and you did the hardest part, getting up when everything's telling you stay in bed and hide and poor you need to sleep in, and to have the whole pity party. You've turned up and all you're worried about doing is, I did 10 laps this last week, so you better do it this week, when the point is it doesn't matter. It's 2 laps and that's all you got in you, then great, that's 2 laps that you can bank. And that was the whole thing for me. That's inclusive. Inclusive means there's no judgment, no one cares, and no one has the right to make someone feel less than just because, as I said, they got the wrong color skin or they sound different, and that was something that I guess, like, as I said, going back to my father, I got it from him, and it's carried on with me. Yeah.
It's amazing. There's so much healing in community, and the fact that you've created this in a space where people feel like they can step in no matter who they are or at what place they're at. There's not enough of that we see anymore. Like, it used to be something that people could fall into very easily because there was more options around, but that's just not the case anymore. But it feels more like it's almost like an active form of therapy that you're providing in so many ways, because when the community can come together, it is very healing and allows people to be able to bounce off each other and also use each other to prop themselves up. and support each other.
I think, like, and Steve, you've grown up in the surf club, and we've been part of community groups, and they've all, like, look at surf life saving movement. Most clubs have been around for in excess of 100 years now. And that doesn't mean they get it right all the time. There's always, there's hierarchy in all these community groups and politics and, local bowls club, and, someone puts a hand in the till or someone gets a bit of power, and, some of those community clubs go through rough periods, and then they got to clean everything out. And sometimes they forget why they do it and what started it. And it's never going to be perfect. I'm by no means perfect at what I do. And, but I look, the thing that allows me to keep doing is that I need that connection myself. I turn up most Saturdays, I don't want to be there a lot of the Saturdays. I'm tired. I want to stay in bed. I've been up early, since I've been sober for the last almost 5 years. I've got up early and I haven't seen the sunrise while I've been laying in bed. But what I do know is that when I do get out of bed and I go down and I get that high five from someone, or someone asks me how I am, I know that by the end of that morning, I am a better person when I woke up, and that's better than me staying in bed. And it's that whole mentality of doing the things that we don't want to do that we know are good for us. And look, I observe a lot of community. There's a big, there's been an explosion in social clubs and swim clubs and running clubs. And, we're going through an interesting stage where on the surface there's a lot of connection happening. But there's a lot of, I guess, manufactured connection as well. So people are coming together, but they're on the phones and they're shooting content, and there's not a lot of deep-rooted community happening. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing something really good, like, and wonderful. What will be interesting to see is as quick as some of these run clubs and swim clubs have expanded, it's whether they'll be around for 9 years like we are, or some of the other run clubs that have been, like Park Run's been around for a long time. I said surf life saving clubs, and that's will be determined by what their values are, what their legacy will be, why they're doing it. Is it organic? Is it incentivized? And, is it sustainable? For me, community is something that needs to be sustainable. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be inclusive as you can, because it's there when you need it. It's there when you don't think you need it, and it's like, I always, one of the big reasons we have made a point of being there every Saturday morning is because right now there's someone watching our account. They've been watching it for 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, and they decide that this Saturday is going to be their day one. And this Saturday morning it's blowing, it's cold, it's windy, it's wet, and then I go, I want to stay in bed, and I cancel it. Not that I would. That person turns up and it's taken them 8 months to get there on their first day, and we're not there to greet them. And the effect that can have on people's when they see something that's reliable not being there can go the other way. But when you create something that's simple, that's accessible, and it only requires you to turn up, it should stand the test of time. And that's something that I've wrestled with in the last 9 years. You wrestled with people to say, hey, we're not changing. This is what we're doing. It's Saturday morning, it's 5 a.m. It's running in circles. It works. And that's our product. That's our contribution to society, to community. And if someone can take a leaf out of our book and create their own version, fantastic. If they want to replicate it, go ahead. If they want to try and improve what we've done, good luck. I always say to them, it's got to work for you. It's got to be something you can want to get up for every week, or you can pass the baton on to someone else when you've had enough or you're away. And it's not about, and community for me is not about pleasing people. community is just showing up, encouraging other people to show up, and then everything else will just work itself out. I don't know how, it just works itself out.
And something that people who follow you, we'll throw all your socials and everything on the recording, but people who follow you may not fully grasp the size of this. And I've been to the 440 not enough times. I wish I was there every weekend, but you cannot get a park in Bronte, right? The locals must absolutely be losing their marbles thinking, oh, this is great. I'm so happy there's a community event, but I can't frigging walk outside of my house without these people, ruling the streets or something. So there must be all sorts of mixed emotions, but you have got big numbers there. I'd love to hear what your guess is on the largest numbers, but you've got parents, you've got kids, you've got people with dogs walking, you've got every type of person showing up there, and it's not the runners and it's not the athletic people necessarily, there's every walk of life. Like you said, community, and I think this is the best part. And just before you give me a number or a guesstimate, it was something that I was commenting on recently, and that is that by me having a training partner for my 5 o'clock training session in winter, when it is 3 degrees, southwesterly, jumping on the water, it is raining, it is blowing, it is ugly, it is not going to be fun, that is sometimes the most rewarding session I can do, because I know that I've got myself out of my comfort zone. And I think what you were saying before is that if you're there and people know you're there, then this is the reason to get out of bed. I don't have an excuse like, oh, maybe they won't show up today, so I can sleep in. No, you guys are there every day. Oh, sorry, every Saturday. But that must also be a driver for people to know, oh, no, I've got no excuse. I'm going to turn up, because there are other people turning up as well.
Yeah, and I think it's that whole metaphor of, just turning up for life. And I think the longer we've gone on, and every year we tick over with the community, like we're constantly evolving. When people ask me what the 440 is, the 440 is an idea. It's an idea around, it's a seed that we planted of, helping people start their day in the dark. What started as a run community on a Saturday morning is, how do we help you start each day in the dark, and how do we, and, whether people want to admit it or not, we get off on the right foot if we get up before the sunrise, and it doesn't have to be at 4 o'clock. Getting up in the dark is getting up before sunrise. And I don't know anyone that hasn't got up and watched the sun come up that hasn't had that warm and fuzzy feeling and go, this is the best thing ever, and it's free and it's accessible. And, it's that time, and that darkness is that time that before everything wakes up, before the cars, the emails, the phone calls, the text messages, the horns and all the noise. And, the more we evolve, like going back to what you're saying in terms of our numbers, like our numbers are, if anything, coming off a little bit, because there's so many run clubs now, people have a sport for choice. So I think there's a few people that are, switching their Saturday mornings with us and doing the later run club during the course of the week. And there is a shift going towards more run clubs that are doing more content and more TikTok and giving away things and all that sort of stuff, which we see them growing. But when I look at the demographic of our community, it's all shapes and sizes, it's all abilities, it's cats and dogs. We had a what do you call it? A baby goat come down with an owner. We've had, and it's helping people live better lives. It's saving people's marriages, and I mean that. Like I had lunch recently with a guy that he's been, he won't mind me saying it, but he was, reckless and awesome guy, and found his way to the run club, and he turned up every week, and we've found this beautiful relationship between the two of us. He brings all of his staff. Runs a business, and he's got his staff members coming down. The staff bring their friends and their partners, And what started with 2 or 3 of them is about 12 to 15 of these boys and girls from this business. And, you know, he took me out for lunch the other week and he said, like, you saved my marriage, you know, because I wasn't looking after myself. I was making poor decisions and my wife had enough. And by finding his way into the community and having that accountability to be there every Saturday, he's become a better leader in his business. He's entering every high rocks and triathlon event that he can. And, you know, like what I said to him at lunch the other day, this is the part I love the most about it, is it's like when I got sober. I got sober because I decided that I didn't want, you know, my life to come to a grinding halt, and I was sick of being in pain and sick of suffering, and I had to go and do work, and I had to go and get help, and I had to turn up to all these appointments. It doesn't matter how much support you've got, you've still got to do it. And like I said to this particular gentleman, you're getting out of bed on a Saturday morning. Further to that, he goes into his office or his workshop and does work from 3 to 4:30 before he comes in. Then he runs up the hill. Then he spends time with his colleagues, you know, and I watch his Instagram, just the activities that he's doing, the changes that he's made. But to be able to remind him that he's doing this, you know, he can thank me all he wants, and that's great. But I get the shits and put it back on them, going, no, like I'm running up the hill for me. You're running up the hill for you. It's still, you've still got to do the work. I'm not lightening the load for you.
Yeah.
And we don't take that time. It's easy to thank everyone else. Oh, thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing that. But we actually forget to pat ourselves on the back. And you know, I take my hat off to anyone that can get out of bed at 4 a.m. on a Saturday, who are running businesses and working long hours and have got rat bag kids and dealing with, you know, tricky ups and downs in life, and then can still manage to drag themselves out of bed and come and run up a hill. Like, it's not a run, it's running up a bloody hill, which is hard work. And you see people that are skinny, you see people that are excessively overweight, and the people that are skinny are struggling. They've got so much stuff going on up top, and the people that are overweight are just like so annoyed at themselves they've let themselves go to that point, and they beat themselves up. And I'm like, no, like, this is awesome. You can get one lap out. You are the person that gets me out of bed today. And I think to be able to remind people that they're the ones actually taking the action, because they don't take that time to reflect and go, shit, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
But you're totally leading, like, by example.
Yeah.
And you're showing them how you can.
I need to be there because I'm batshit crazy some days. and so I go there for me. And I said this years ago when we started growing. I said, you know, I don't care whether you guys come or you don't. I'm going to be there. And when I let go of who was coming, and I went, mate, just go for yourself, just be there, then more people started turning up because they could see that I was going to be there every week. And they're like, well, if he's going to do it, I'll do it. And then that grew. And then they're like, and then those people brought their friends, and they brought their friends, and they saw the group was growing in every photo. And like, shit, that group's getting big. That looks fun now. And that was all we had to do, was just keep getting out of bed. That's like our motto is get up, lace up, turn up. And that's all we've done. And you know, as I said, we're going through a transitional period at the moment where people are trying out other run clubs. The numbers have been light, which is really good. It means that there's more breathing space and there's more space to run. But the idea of what we do is the thing that continues to grow. And I think with, you know, where mental health is at the moment and the spotlight that's on it, and, you know, our addiction to social media and addiction to all sorts of things, you know, the idea and the message that we've created, I think, is now needed more than ever. You know, being kind to yourself, prioritizing your mental, physical, spiritual health, being connected to community, being part of surf clubs and, you know, sporting clubs, volunteering your time, like getting off yourself and giving your time to something else, like helping someone else. It's good for your, like, you know, being in sobriety. One of the things that keeps me sober is helping other people get sober. And it's like, as you get fit and you feel good and you become part of a community, then you can start bringing people along and help them. You know, and that makes you stay in that lane as well, because it's helping, it's showing you your hard work is paying off because other people want to do what you're doing. And then that keeps you accountable. Yeah.
It sounds like your lifestyle has changed a lot since starting the 440. You mentioned sobriety. Is that part of that journey, or because of it, do you think?
The sporting side and the training has been there since an early childhood. I think that's probably that's helped me substantially. I've just redirected why I do it, and I don't punish myself when I train. We spoke earlier, I'm back doing what Steve does and, you know, racing back in the surf club again. And that was something I started at the age of 8, racing. And, you know, I had 20 odd years away from it, and now I'm back doing it because I missed it so much. And I'm enjoying it. I'm there to have fun, reconnect with all the guys and girls I raced against years ago. And so, you know, the tools and the routines have been there. It's now like, you know, sobriety has become a big part of my life. And what sobriety's allowed me to do is go back and reconnect to the things that I actually love doing. But I'm doing it with more fun and enthusiasm than ever, because it is fun. And I only do things that I like doing. If I don't enjoy it, I don't do it. You know,
that's maturity, isn't it?
Yeah, it's thinking. It's you know, it's thinking ahead, and it's you know, like, use an example, like, and it's not a bad thing. A lot of people go to run clubs because everyone else is doing it. They don't even know why they're there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's good. That'll serve a purpose for a particular time. But, you know, like, if you cornered some of them, said, why are you here? They got no idea. Yeah. You know, and that's okay. But this means it won't be sustainable down the track. You know, if you ask me why I'm back paddling, I just love it. I go out in the ocean, I can surf, it gets me places. I can paddle up and down the coast and see parts of the coast that you can't see from the roadway. And there's peacefulness out in the ocean, and there's no phones ringing, and you're connected to the earth. You know, just having that salt water rush over your skin, surfing small waves, surfing big waves. I feel like it's where I'm meant to be.
Yeah. You know exactly why. Talking about mental health, this is a conversation that, like, obviously you're really passionate about, as am I, and it is very on point. But in November 23, you coordinated the Grateful Mile with Mark from in the UK.
Yes.
And what you were saying before about the guy who said you saved his marriage, during that Grateful Mile event, and for the listeners, what that means is that we did a marathon in total. That's the distance in a 24-hour period. Yep. I think the first run we did was a little bit longer, but then every hour after that was 1 mile, and collectively it added up to a marathon. And then Mark would go along, the guy who's created this Grateful Mile, and he'd find someone, have a little bit of a chat, and invite them to talk about what they might be experiencing at the moment. And I don't know if he was like getting in there saying, hey, like, is there anything you're struggling with? Is there anything you could share? Is there anything that would inspire others to, you know, talk or be more open? But what that event, in my opinion, created was this space where these group of guys that didn't know each other were able to openly talk about some of the real stuff that's going on in their lives. And just because we're talking about community so much as well, that's like just something that was so amazing to me. And some of the things that some of the guys shared was just mind-blowing, because it felt like as though they hadn't shared that with anyone, but that they're sharing it with a group of people that they don't know. and big stuff like, suicidal thoughts and things like that. And hopefully that conversation for them in this safe space changed the trajectory of where they were maybe heading in their headspace and mental health. And so I just thought I'd mention that, because these are some of the things that have come from the 440, the type of events that are happening, the other run groups and everything. And I think it's just so amazing where community, with the right reason, is providing these avenues for people to change their lives, to be better people, to share, to open up, to be vulnerable, to, hopefully not go down that path where mental health can lead people. So have you had a good experience yourself?
Yeah, look, and I haven't spoken about that event for a while, but one of the things I loved about the Grateful Mile, I think we did 5K for the first run. I think we kicked off at 9 a.m. on the Saturday, and we did the last run at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. If you wrangled everyone at 8:30 on the Saturday, and some of us knew each other, others didn't, and no one knew every person at the start, and Mark went up and put the camera in everyone's face and the microphone and asked the question that whatever you were asking, where it was all different. You would have got a pretty blunt response from everyone. Everyone was like, "Oh, this is weird. What's a bit in, it's a bit in your face." And there was so much power in. You think about all we did was we got a bunch of guys with no expectations. We didn't know what we were doing and what to expect. All we knew we had to do was a mile on the hour every hour, and we're going to camp out on the beach and stay under shelter and move around. And we had food and we had everything we needed. But the fact that you had 15 or 16 guys together for 24 hours, it showed and it proved that bringing men into a space like that in 24 hours, how much you can actually unlock through movement, through just sitting there in stillness, someone there just probing at the right time. And you create safety, you create space. Vulnerability is like sitting beneath the surface anyway. It's there because you're already sort of like, what am I doing? Like, why did I say yes to this? Like what? Like, and you don't know why you say yes. There's something within you that you're drawn to, and people had the option of saying yes or no. And in that particular exercise, like that exercise of what we did is more powerful than someone, and no disrespect to, like, I've got a wonderful psychologist, but like seeing a psychologist once a week for an hour for 6 weeks, like what we accomplished in 24 hours in conversation, because we created a space where people could share. We weren't trying to fix anyone's problems. It's very similar to an AA platform. By someone sharing, then the audience starts listening for the similarities rather than looking for the differences. I'm not like Steve, and I don't have the things that I don't relate to what he's saying, and I don't relate to Rory, and I don't relate to Jeremy, and I'd never do what Tom did, and that's not what it's about. It's like, I'm going through what Steve's going through at the moment, but I don't want to talk about it. But maybe I'll listen to what he's got to say, and maybe that's a separate conversation. And that's the whole point of when you're sharing that. You'll find that most people are going through or been through what you're going through. But when you don't come into those environments together enough, then you're not sharing. So when you're not sharing, you just think you're on your own. You think what you're going through, you're pioneering it. And it's why we don't get better. It's why men struggle. It's why our suicide rates are so high, because the majority of us don't share. That particular 24 hours is nothing short of magic. So powerful. And there's no magic pill to it. It's a bunch of, bull-fed blokes coming together, having a laugh. Like I still, remember Sam and Tom and You'll kill me if I forget his name. Our three youngsters, and
Yeah.
they're having a cigarette Sunday morning, and they're wide awake, and they got bloodshot eyes, but none of us have slept, and they were just having a laugh, and they added so much value to our group, and they all opened up, those boys, about their experience, and they were the youngest in the group, and the fact that we came in with no expectations other than just people willing to just participate is the magic. And if you look at what community is and look at what, say, the 440s created, you keep turning up the same time every week, magic will start to happen over time, because people become, people start trusting the community. They start becoming open. They start sharing. They start getting healthier. They start changing their routines on a Friday night. And it's time. It just things unravel over time when you have something that, like I said earlier, something that's accessible, something that's sustainable, and you don't have to solve anyone's problems. We weren't solving anyone's problems during the Grateful Mile. We were just, our shoulders were out for people to lean in on, and we lent our ears in to listen. And, what came out of that, like a lot of friendships. Sorry, Sam, Tom, and Charlie.
Racking your brain over that one while you're talking.
Yeah, and I think that you can spend all the money in the world on, therapy and pharmaceutical stuff for antidepressants and all that stuff, but get a bunch of people to move together for 24 hours, sleep under the stars, and make them do something outside their comfort zone, and people will start talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it didn't cost anyone anything. It was, again, in community for me is giving your time up for something that's bigger than you. And that's all we did for 24 hours, which is quite remarkable.
Holding space for people, that's a skill. It's a skill that we've sort of lost. We're so used to sort of listening to what someone has to say to jump in and give them our opinion, or this was my experience, instead of just listening and just being that shoulder, like you said. It's not about fixing anyone or helping them see that you've survived it, therefore they could. It's a very different place to come from, where it's just sitting there in a space of just compassion and understanding and just listening. It's a powerful tool in itself.
It's a practice, like to the points where you were saying, we do talk over the top of each other, but the more you do it, the better we get. And going back to what I said before, if I'm helping someone start up a run club, one of the first things I say is make it sustainable. You have to be able to turn up every week. Like, don't give away too much. Don't do 3 sessions a week. Don't give free this and free that away, because that's what they're going to want every week. And when you're holding space for people, you've got to be prepared to do it regularly to make it work. Like I look at church. Church is the greatest example of community. They open a set of doors up every Sunday morning. You walk in, there's a guy or a girl out the front. They read from the same book. Whether you believe in God or whether you're religious or not, you can still go and sit there and just be around other people that have a higher faith, and they don't judge, and that's why it works, because it's there all the time. It's been around, and it's been around for thousands of years. And you take out of it what you want. You don't have to buy into it all. It's entirely up to you. It's like us. Like, you don't have to come down and be a world beater runner. You don't have to run. You don't have to share anything. You don't have to talk to anyone if you're not ready. But eventually you will when you start feeling better. And our job is just to be there. If someone says, you say hello to someone, they don't say hello back, that's cool. Eventually they will talk.
Yeah.
But we're all on our own, we're all on our own journeys in life, and we want the best for one another, but it's the old mentality that we just got to get ourselves right first, and the others will work it out when they're ready.
And mate, this is not the only community that you've got going as well. You've got the coffee club, don't you?
Yeah. We started doing the live chats in March of 2020, which is the same year I decided to get sober again. And
the month of COVID.
Yeah. We shut all the run clubs down that we had because of all the lockdowns, and we just decided we were going to put up like a daily workout video on our account, and we thought we called it 44 days with the 440 to start, because we thought our first lockdown would be short and sweet. 44 days later, we'd put up these 10-minute videos every day. It was just like, giving a body weight workout. Cameras were falling over and wind was blowing and rain, and then, it became every day with the 440 once the 44 days had elapsed and we were still in lockdown. And then I remember we got young Ned Brockman on, and he was quite young at the time. He was about to do his first challenge of 50 marathons in 50 days. And we got him on one morning and bought him a coffee, and we were having a chat. And we had to do everything because we pre-record it, and it had to be under 15 minutes or it couldn't upload to Instagram. So we got him on, and that was about day 70 or day 80, I think. And so we just started calling it the Coffee Club. And then I think I may have been close to having a rock bottom, and had my last drink. Decided that was June of 2020. Sorry about that. And decided that I thought the coffee club would be a good way to keep me accountable. But it was also like it was a touch and go thing, because I didn't want it to be something that was going to put too much stress, because I was going to getting help, and I was doing meetings and, doing everything I possibly could. And I remember my head being all over the place, and we were all a bit concerned that me getting up at 4:00 was going to be too much stress for me. And then I had like a moment or a vision that if I didn't drink again, I did everything I possibly could to get help, that the coffee club would continue and the run club would continue and the 440 would grow in ways that I couldn't sort of imagine. And if I didn't do that, then I could just sort of see that I would I'd burn the whole community to the ground, because I would destroy it, because if I picked up a drink again, it could, escalate again. And so I just said, well, if I get up and do the coffee club every day, that means I've got to behave myself. It means I've got accountability to be up and talk to a community. And then I just decided, I said, all right, once I think I had a few months up, I said, well, why don't I see if I can go and do 440 straight days of the coffee club? And we did it, we got to day 440, and I just kept doing it. I just kept doing it, and it's sometimes we get 5 people tune in, sometimes we get 50 or 100 people, and it's just been something that has helped me stay sober. There's a story attached to it now, that we've been doing it for so long, and going back to what I was saying, it just gave us another platform to keep our community sustainable. Whether it grows into something bigger or we do something more with it, who knows? But for now, it gets me off on the right foot every day.
Yeah. And hang on a sec. You're just giving us all the surface stuff, right?
Yeah.
You've got people dialing in internationally.
Yeah.
You dial in when you're overseas.
Yes.
You do your cold therapy treatment before you start your 4:30 coffee club.
I just jump in the water every day.
Wow.
Yeah. The salt water, more so,
Yeah.
not just anything. You jump in the ocean.
Jump in the ocean. Yeah. And I've found that, where it's really served me, that I everyone talks about ice baths and cold therapy, and I just thought, well, at that time I don't have time to jump in an ice bath. I really want a cold shower. I thought, I'm at the beach, why don't I just get there 10 minutes early and have a swim? And what it's really done for me, I had, and I've shared with you, Steve, I've had some personal things happening in the last couple of years, some family stuff, and during all of that, like even on the bad days, part of being in sobriety, sometimes, when people pick up after having a long time of sobriety up, it's usually events happen that catch them off guard, and they hit that self-destruct button, they pick up a drink, and they go back to sort of square one. Fortunately, I haven't had any days where I've wanted to pick up a drink, but there's been some challenging days. And having the coffee club there and the swim, what it's allowed me to do is, and I guess the best way of describing it, having access to the water first thing in the morning. Like I've had some, nights where I've gone to bed at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock because stuff's been going on. And I get to bed, head gets on the pillow, the alarm goes up at 3:30. I feel like I've been backed over by a truck. Dragging myself down to the ocean and just laying in the shoreline. And I'm laying in, a foot and a half of water. I don't go out far, and you've been there with me, Steve. On a real rough morning, just laying there and letting the ocean and the salt water wash over my body. It really has been like an amazing tool for me to start the day right and wash all the bullshit and all the chaos and all the stuff that's gone on the day before, all the things that are out of my control. And, it's allowed me just to reconnect in that moment. I walk up off the beach, I have the cold shower, I get dressed, and, I might be a bit tired, a bit moody, but it's better than staying in bed and trying to catch up on the sleep.
Yeah.
And it's free, it's accessible. It doesn't, you don't need it doesn't require any sort of parts or whatever, or props for it. And I think that these are things that have become tools in my belt that allow me to start each day the best I possibly can with, regardless of what's going on. And, it's taken me years to sort of figure these things out. And I know that it doesn't matter how bad things get in life, and part of our, our values at the Run Club is, we start in the dark, and we go through dark periods. We all experience darkness at different stages of our life, but there's always light at the end of it. And as bad as some of my days get, I know the sun's going to get up the next day. So if I can get my head on the pillow and get myself up and just drag myself down the beach and dive in the water, I know that it's going to give me a better start, rather than allowing things to compound and carry all that shit from the day before into the new day. And it gives me strength, it gives me strength, and also every day I can get through one of those days, I'm also giving myself another reason that there's no reason to ever pick up a drink when things get bad, or act out, or take it out on your partner, or take it out on your friends. And I think that's where I've improved in life, is that whatever's going on with me, they're not things that are happening to me, they're the things that are happening for me. And I don't have any right to then go and take it out on my partner, take it out on the guys and girls that I train, or the people from the Run Club, because something's not going well in my life. Yeah. I think, and having those swims, just for that moment, go, hey, you're okay. You're lying in the ocean. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
It could be worse. You could be sitting in a 2x2 jail cell. You could be in a psych ward. You could be, you could have been in an accident, and
yeah.
Your health could be gone.
Yeah.
It could be all of that, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a bit of stress that's happening, and you'll get through it.
Sounds like a beautiful form of meditation almost.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the cold water, and it's like you can't be anywhere else. It's a practice of mindfulness all of its own, because you have to be so present with yourself and your body. I find it such a beautiful way to sort of recenter yourself, and to do that first thing in the morning and in the ocean, where you just feel so kind of connected to everything. It's amazing how quickly it can take you out of that kind of insular internal dialogue into that expanse of feeling more connected to everything, not just each other, but the planet. And I can see why it's such a powerful tool for you. Do you have other tools like that you use? I mean, I know you do a lot of running, but
yeah, look, all my tools are, and I've spoken to Steve about this. The things that don't cost anything, the things that are accessible. So that swim in the morning. I'm a Vedic meditator, and my practice has been a bit wonky, probably in the last 12 months. But when things are good, I'm meditating twice a day, every day. It's 20 minutes. I've got my training, at my running. I've reacquired paddling boards again, so I'm back out surfing more. It's got me surfing again. I just go and get a few waves when I can, and I put my life in my hands the other day when it was about, I don't know, 10 or 15 feet out at North Bondi, and I went out there and I firstly asked permission from my partner. Can I go out? And she said, yeah. And I was hoping she'd say no. And I said, well, I'll go out there and just have a look around. I won't catch a wave because I don't think I'm confident like I used to be. And I worry about injuries. And then the next moment I'm, taking off on these things. And I was absolutely shitting myself. But, it made me feel alive. And, so I have all these things I call them my tools laid at my feet, and they're there that I can use every day if I choose to. But if I let my head get ahead of myself and this gets all messy, you forget about all the stuff that's in front of you, and I know that if I'm, moving every day, I'm being mindful every day, I'm practicing meditation, I'm getting some sort of cold therapy, I'm eating reasonably well, I'm trying to get to bed early, that I'm going to be okay, and it's not, they're things that I need to practice every day. They're things that I need to put into me before I do anything for anyone else. And it allows me to get rid of stress out of the body. It allows me to stay connected to myself. It allows me to be a better leader, a better partner, a better friend. And I always believe that, there's no quick fix to that stuff. There's no shortcuts to doing that stuff. They're daily practices that if you want to get better at it, or you want to feel better, or you want to look better, or you want to be more connected, you've got to do them every day. And I think that we're in a society now where we know what's good for us, but we will still look for the magic pill or go for the easy reach.
Yeah.
Rather than go to bed early, get up early and make some real change, reduce your alcohol, start moving more, maybe go revisiting your therapist again and sitting and dealing with some stuff that you've been, sweeping under the carpet.
Yeah.
Burying. Yeah. Burying, or facing the stuff that we don't want to face. And, it's daily work, daily practices, and simple stuff that's been around long before me. I'm not reinventing any wheels. Communities have been coming together for thousands of years. Mindfulness has been around for tens of thousands of years, and meditation. Cold therapy's been around since the dawn of time. Grounding and connection to the earth has been going on for, again, tens of thousands of years. It works.
And do you think that because you have these good practices, these regular practices, are you more sensitive to your own emotional state, your reactiveness? You can sense when you are maybe spiraling downwards a little bit versus when you're in a good place and you can just hold space for people. Do you really feel that for yourself?
When I be, I'm oversensitive, or I can feel frustrated, it might mean that I'm not doing enough of the things I need to be doing. So my meditation practice has probably dropped off, or I haven't been to enough AA meetings, or I haven't been, spending enough time in the ocean. There's usually, like I said earlier, we think that the world's against us, like it's happening against us. It's actually happening for us. And there's, when these things happen to us, the way someone speaks to us, or, we get some bad news or something, there's a reason for everything, and things happen, and it's how we react to those things is where we're at. And like, if I'm meditating a lot and being kind to myself and resting a lot, then I'm less reactive, right? But when I'm overtraining and I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not meditating all the time, I'm not eating the best, then, I'm probably a fire-breathing dragon. But where I've improved is my reaction time to things is now, instead of it happening in the moment, I can feel it coming up, and I go, all right, well, I know what this feels like. You don't need to say anything. If someone's behaving in a way that I don't approve of, more often than not, they don't even know they're doing it. And so I'll just pause and go, all right, well, they're having a bad day. They've got their own shit going on, which we all do. And I just go, oh, well, or I just ask them, is everything all right? You don't seem yourself. And I think having all the meditation practices and all the things and being sober, you are more present, and you can see a dip in a dip in someone's behaviour, and you can say, hey, look, you didn't seem yourself the other day. Is everything all right? And they might go, yeah, I'm fine. I go, cool. I just thought I'd ask. And then, a week later, they ring you up and said, hey, I wasn't honest with you the other day, and I really appreciate you checking in. I wasn't having a good time. I wasn't having a good couple of days, and I thought you were having a go at me. But this is what's going on. And you're like, okay, cool. And I think the more sober I get and the more I do stay in that mindfulness practice, and we've spoken about holding space, you can be patient with people and go, hey, look, I know this person's struggling. They're not being upfront with me, but I'm sure they'll come and speak to me when the time's right. And you don't judge them. You don't get the shit to them because they're not. Yeah, and we do, but we give people a hard time because you want to get to the bottom of their problems for them. They're not ready to deal with them, so you start getting short with them because they're not willing to listen to what you've got to say, and you know what's going on with them. You know them better than what they do. And that was me. People were trying to help me years ago and looking at me going, like, you need to do this. And I'm like, I don't need to do anything. Some of those people were really patient with me and are still really close to me, and others weren't patient with me, and they're like, some of them sometimes wait for you to mess up, and they, so they can come down hard on you, and then those relationships drift apart. And now the people that I help that reach out that are really, really struggling, I might in consecutive weeks have the same conversation with them. They'll tell me what's happening. I'll go, okay, have you done this? Let's do this. And they won't do it. They'll come back to me in a couple of weeks still struggling. And what's really cool is that I'm only suggesting to them the things that have worked for me. And I know they work. Yeah. They're still looking for the shortcuts. And eventually they do get it. And they go, oh, yeah, I was looking for a shortcut, and I hadn't completely accepted that there's an issue when I drink. Yes. And I'm not doing daily meetings, and I'm not being honest with my sponsor, and I go, cool, now you're getting it. Now you're understanding it. And I don't need to berate them because they haven't taken my suggestion, because I didn't want to take anyone's suggestion at the start either. I thought I knew better. But the difference between me and the people helping me was that they were still staying sober. I wasn't. And there's no magic formula other than just taking suggested steps. And, having your toolbox, and what do I like, Steve, Jason Byrne really well. Jason he always says the same thing. He says, what are the things I need to do each day to be a person and to function in this world? What are those things? And that's all we're really trying to achieve. What are the things I need to do to be the best version of me, or just be me?
Now, I think in the coffee club, this is what I love, and I apologise, mate. I would be on there every morning, but that is my meditation journaling.
Well, I wouldn't be if I wasn't hosting it. That's the last place I'd be every morning. I'd be tucked up and sleeping.
But like, I think that the messages that you share is really about keeping it simple. Don't overcomplicate this stuff. Like, you talk about, okay, guys, in 90 days, we've got New Year's Eve. All right. So don't wait till New Year's Eve. Let's start something basic, get out for a walk. Blah, blah, blah. I love this. I love this story. And you keep things really simple. So for yourself, you've got access to some of these things that help you maintain a healthy routine.
Yep.
They're accessible. But for other people who maybe don't have that, you talk about it on your coffee club. Like, what things have you done outside of, having access to the beach? Not everyone has that. Not everyone is safe to enter the water on their own at any point. So, like, what other things have you done that other people could think about if they wanted to just start moving in the right direction of mindfulness, taking care of themselves? And
look, I've had people over the years come up with grand plans of, I'm going to go and exercise every day, and I'm going to go and do this and join the gym and all this sort of stuff. And I go, cool, that's awesome. And I've made a simple suggestion and said, all right, what I want you to do for the next 7 days, I want you to get out of bed, put your shoes on, and get outside the house before the sun comes up. And more often than not, if they're coming off a low base, they'll be lucky to get out of bed one day out of the 7. And you have a laugh and you go, right. So you're worrying about running and gym and Pilates and everything and taking
Mr.
stuff,
Universe.
all the stuff. But we got to get the simple part right. Let's get you out of bed. Okay, so what are we going to do to get out of bed? Set a bunch of alarms, right? You got to do everything within your power to drag yourself out of bed and have your clothes beside your bed, get organised. You got to get to bed early. And they're straight away. Like, there's 2 things you can do. Go to bed early, get up early. Or 3 things, and have your clothes ready and a jug of water ready. There's 4 things before you do anything. And that might be your goal for the first month. Get out of bed, put your shoes on, have a glass of water and a glass and a half, splash some water on your face. Get that part right. And then, okay, what do I do when I get outside? Walk around the block. That doesn't cost you anything. You don't need a gym membership, right? You don't need to have access to a beach. Here's another thing you can do. Call your best friend, the person lives close to you, and said, hey, how would you feel about going for a walk once or twice a week with me? You book them in.
Have a chat.
Yeah.
How much water are you drinking at the moment each day? Oh, maybe a little bottle. Great. Let's get that to 2 litres a day. Right. What time are you starting to think about going to bed at night? What does your routine look like? What are you watching? Are you got screens in bed? That stuff. Have you ever thought about writing a gratitude list? The practice of that. What are your friends doing for exercise that you might be able to join in on? What were the last activities and hobbies that you did? Were you playing touch footy? Did you play mixed netball? Were you playing tennis? How long has it been since you played any of those games? Are you interested in getting back into it? Great. Are your friends still playing? Will they let you in for a game? Okay, what do you need to do to get fit for tennis again? Right. Got to eat well. Got to drink water. Got to go to bed early. And you everything's it's like a flow chart. Do you know trainers in your area? Do your friends know trainers? And if you think about all the things that we're suggesting, it's all community-based. Ask people within your community. And more importantly, you're asking for help.
Yeah.
Which is the hardest thing you'll ever do. And that will be one of the biggest things that stops you from moving forward.
The ego.
And say, Steve, who do you train with? What do I do? And you might go, look, I'm a bit too fit for you. But I've got someone who you should jump in with. Text all your friends and say, hey, I'm really struggling. I want to get moving. Can you help me? It's that whole putting my hand up thing again. And you don't get bogged down on, I don't have this and you don't understand. I don't live where you live and I don't this. Cool. You got a pair of shoes? Yeah, great. got an old shitty T-shirt and shorts, great. Got a
Yeah.
hoodie, get out, walk around the block, walk down the road, and even if it's to buy the coffee or buy your milk.
And so just talking on the go for a walk and an exercise, you love sending the message to all your female listeners, please don't go out there in the dark.
Yeah.
And I only mention that because I've got a friend who's the same. She's like, it's now too dark for me to go do my morning routine. And it's like, right, okay, so I guess you got to just prioritize time elsewhere. Like maybe you get up and do your meditation and whatever else early, and then at 10 a.m. after you've started your day, if you've got an opportunity, or during your lunch break, you go out for your walk. There's still opportunities to do something.
But you know, like there's an opportunity to start your own run club. You know what I mean? You go and get a bunch of guys and girls that live in the immediate area and say, and the girls say, listen, and you know, the guys should be taking responsibility and saying to the girls, no, you're not going running on your own in the dark. And I'm a big advocate for that. You know, it's not safe enough. And so, you know, put a WhatsApp group together and say, hey, who feels like running together once or twice a week?
Yeah.
You know, and you start. And the rule is there's got to be at least one guy and one, you know, there's got to be at least one guy for every X amount of girls or whatever it is. And, you know, pick a safe route, you know, you know, it's again, it's just asking the question, who wants to do it? Like we've got a bunch of girls, we want to run. Can you boys come and run with us? And just keep asking. And it's that always like, and it's easier said than done, but people that are early days and struggling with stuff, just ask questions.
Yeah.
You know, I say that a lot, like just start. And it doesn't matter how fit you think you were, how good you used to look, or whatever you think you did. Like that means nothing. If you hold on to that stuff, that'll be the Achilles that stops you from moving forward, because you talk about how good you were and you beat yourself up because I'll never get back to that, and you know, what are people going to say about me? You just pick up the ball in front of you and you just start moving and you start running with it. You don't worry about going back to start and whether it's a forward pass or a knock on. You just pick it up and start running with it, and that's it. And you just make it up as you go along. And it will fall into place when you start getting routine. You know, like to get up and move in the morning, what I've got to do. Like it's, you know, what time do I have to go to bed tonight? You know, and it's like, oh, I get in the trap of Netflix and stuff. Cool. Have your dinner ready. Eat, read a couple of pages with your partner, go to bed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that practice. It's not going to be perfect. You know, it's taken me years to get my sleeping right, but it's now the best it's ever been, and I'm still behind in sleep. you know, but it's better than what it was.
So, mate, there's plenty of great information that you've provided there. I just don't feel like we've really touched on all of the things we could talk about, you know, like the sporting activities we've done over the years, the psychology behind the sporting, the ego behind this, like, oh, I used to compete at this level, like how can I go back to masters and all this sort of thing, mate. So we've kept you on for quite a while and I'd love to talk more, but I think we're just going to have to invite you back for another session at some point in the near future and just talk more about, you know, like this fitness and mental health stuff is really important. But I think there's so much more to this conversation that we could really dive into. So, is there anything?
I think you hit the nail on the head though. Like, and I love coming on and having a chat about these things. That there's no right or wrong way. I think the more that you take care of yourself and you have all these tools that we've spoken about and you use those tools, that you'll figure it out. You know, like you won't overtrain. You're not going to punish yourself. You'll use these tools for the greater good. You know, like you were an inspiration for me to get back into the surf club. I used to, you know, when you're sharing it all and going to the state and to the worlds and stuff and competing, for me, there was a bit of fear around because I'd left it so long and getting older, and the body, it's always sore and tight, and there was a part of me, it's like, I don't think I'll be able to do it. And so I prolonged it. Like, I probably pushed out the last 2 or 3 seasons, and I had to rejoin the club, and I'd make excuses. And then finally, I remember Jamie Burko just said, "Oh, look, mate, we'll just get this sorted." And he got young Megan from the club to jump in and said, "Right, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to fill out this, you got to go and do your part of your bronze." And I went, "All right, you tell me where I got to be." And then I just went out and had a paddle on the board. I just remember paddling over to Clay Valley one day, and I got out the board, I got past the point, I stopped, and I just started crying. I was out the back, and I'm like, oh my God, this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is where I'm meant to be. And I put it off for so long. But coming back into the sporting arena this year and coming from a competitive background, I also had to say to myself, like, and I had to tell a few people from the club, please let me just find my feet this year. Please don't, I know you're excited in team events and pulling me in different directions. So that's great. I said, but like, and someone said, "Oh, we maybe get you to coach." And I said, "Look, let me just like figure it all out. Let me just like get my toe in the water, have a couple of races." And, I turned up at the first carnival and I thought I was about to have a heart attack. It's like, it's different racing than training. And I went, shit, now I remember. And what it did for me in that moment, which was interesting, it had me, it revived the respect that I've always had for surf life saving. I still think it is one of the most prominent and premier and elite sports that Australians do. It is, it's remarkable. We have more crossover in Olympians than any other sport. We have Olympic swimmers, Olympic, kayakers, and Olympic runners that all compete in surf life saving. It's phenomenal. And I re-found my respect for the sport, and like, I'm like, mate, you've got some work to do. But it's like, it doesn't have to happen this year, and there's next season, and I'm already looking forward to it. And it humbled me that it's a process to get back to a level that I would say is competent. It's never going to be as good as what it was 20 years ago, but it'll be a level going that if I put the work in, and I do, and I enjoy it and have fun and don't take it too serious, then wherever I'm meant to get to, I will get to it. And whatever that looks like, I'll know over the next few years. And there's no expectation. And when it's not fun, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I love that.
I don't want to be whipping myself and going, you have to do this because that's what everyone else is doing. No, I want to be there because I feel proud to put on my, my racing cap, and I feel proud to be able to stand on the beach with all of you guys and girls and share the same beach, and to be able to race amongst you and know that's something that I really enjoyed when I was, many years ago, and that I can come back to and I feel like I'm at home.
Yeah.
And I think that's the message I want to get out to people. It's not too late to reconnect to things that you were passionate about, but you've got to be prepared to change your mindset around it.
Yeah.
There's some hurdles that you'll have to overcome, and you need all the tools. You need mindfulness. You need your own therapy. You need to be kind to yourself. You need maintenance, and you need to do it with fun people.
And that's what, mate, I love talking to you about this stuff. Like, I think the ego has fallen away so much, and these are the things that we haven't even got onto, like your transition from drinking for whatever those reasons were, and the way you were training yourself to not drinking, to letting go of this ego right now. And as you just said, like, people might be scared of going out the door and starting something because it's like, look at what I've done to myself. I used to be this, I used to be that. Like, there's so much that we can talk about. So I really would love to get you back on for another chat.
No, I'd love to.
Yeah, mate. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing just a small part of your journey, like the community stuff that you've created and what I've seen. I love it. I really am grateful for what you do, and I know that other people that are in your circle absolutely see it too. So thank you, mate.
No, thanks, mate. I really appreciate you getting me on, and thanks for having me, Catherine.
Oh, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. And you've just shown how much one person can make such a difference in their own community, let alone what they can do for themselves in their own lives. It's really inspiring. Thank you, Trent.
Thanks, guys.